Ladies and gentlemen, the American jury and Bulldog Nation, welcome to another edition of Eric Deters, The Law. This is going to be police liability. Remember, these are educational. I am a retired lawyer, but these are fields of law that I practice in, and I know them. And in addition to that, there's always room for an update. So I don't want you to rely upon this. I want you to get an over. When I say rely upon it, like if you actually have a case, but this will help guide you a little bit. And as always, if you need a lawyer on any type of a legal matter, you can email me at eric@ericdeters.com, or you can text me at eric@ericdeters.com. Text me at 859-250-2527 and email me at eric@ericdeters.com. And I have a lot of good lawyers that practice in this field that I can hook you up with. Let's begin with this, the job of a police officer. The job of a police officer is very unique in our society. And the reason why it's very unique in our society, it is one of the few jobs where you get to carry a gun and a deadly weapon. Security guards, I guess, sometimes as well. However, it's also the only job where we give someone the powers to arrest. You get to arrest somebody. Now, you can do a citizen's arrest, like Gomer Pyle said, if you see a felony in the works. You see a bank robbery, you can arrest them if you can. All right. But the job of a police officer is very, very unique in our society. Now, also, a police officer has great risk of life, especially, just think if you're a police officer in one of our violent, major big cities. Can you imagine what a police officer is like, Josh, in your New York City, Chicago, wow, L.A.? I mean, I'm telling you right now, they're not, and by the way, I live in Independence, but you know what? That's not the same risk that an Independence police officer takes every day. However, we see this all the time. You can be a highway patrolman. You don't know who you're pulling over. You can be an Independence police officer. You go to a house for domestic violence. You don't know what you're walking into. They risk their life. They also have to deal with politics inside their department and outside their department. It's something else. And you got lousy hours if you're the third shift guy or the second shift or the weekender. And then you got the public treatment. You know, you got half the public who admires you and half the public that scorns you. All right. What is a police officer's duty? Well, you know this because it's on the police officer's cruisers. It's the motto, serve and protect. Serve the public, protect the public. They're there to enforce the laws. Traffic laws, misdemeanors, felonies, the whole bailiwick of criminal law. Those police officers have to know what the elements are. And of course, investigate crime. That's why you have detective departments. All right. The number one duty of government is public safety. And other than the military, which protects us from outside forces, law enforcement from local, you got city, county, sheriff, police, FBI, you know, there's all kinds, ATF, all of these, they protect us. They're supposed to protect us. Now, this is something that is the root of what we're going to talk about today. This is going to cover things you don't know. And it is going to blow you away when you put in context the massive settlements that are paid out from our liberal democratic cities. And old Ben Crumb. All right, get this. Police officers have immunity for negligence. I saw some law office's website talking about you can sue police officers for negligence. No, you can't. Police officers have immunity for negligence. Let me give you some examples. And this might shock you, but it's the truth. A police officer arrests you thinking you're Bill Jones when you're Bob Jones. And you go all the way down to jail, and police officer made an honest mistake. And you're in jail over the weekend. Do you have a case against the cop? No. Anything a police officer does, honestly, negligent, no case. No case. And the reason why is because we have to have some type of police force. And if a police officer is going to get nailed for negligence, we won't have any police. It's a societal balancing test. The need for law enforcement officers and to protect the public, but protect them a little bit too. I got to ask you this question. In the wake of defund the police and all that crap, can you imagine not having police officers? So anything that goes down, you're on your own. And you got tough guys like me and Chuck Holbrook. We ain't afraid to carry. We're not afraid to shoot. You know, all that kind of stuff. But come on. Children, teenagers, women, old, elderly, meek, mild-mannered men. I mean, it would be a disaster. In fact, that's why defund the police was so stupid. What happened in those jurisdictions? Crime takes over. All right. You do not have immunity for intent. Let me give you some examples. There was a case down in South Carolina that was one of the worst of the cases I've seen, where a police officer shot a guy in the back running away. I was like, holy cow. That's murder. That's a crime. That's intent. No immunity for intent. We're going to cover some more of where there's not immunity in a little bit. And that's when we get to Section 42 of the United States Code, Section 1983. It's just a statute passed by Congress in the United States Code. And if you are in the police liability business, you call them the 1983 actions. It developed during the Civil War. And during the Civil War, there was a lot of issues relative to unlawful police action, so they passed this law. Now, who does it apply to? The defendant has to be a natural person or local government. In other words, it doesn't apply to an illegal alien. They have to be acting under the color of law. Police officers generally do. Now, let me give you an example. You're an off-duty cop. You're off-duty cop and you do something. It's not under the color of law. You're acting this as an off-duty cop. Wouldn't apply. It has to be the violation of the Constitution and your federally protected rights. We'll go into that some more detail in a minute. And it must reach that constitutional level. Here is, besides intent, like a cop shoots somebody in the back, murders them, that's intent. Here's where 1983 law applies. And this law has been developed through Supreme Court cases, federal cases. It's called deliberate indifference. Think of what that word says in plain language. Deliberate, intent, indifference. You don't give a damn. Knowingly disregard. See that little intent angle in there? That's what we're dealing with. So somewhere between plain intent and negligence, we got deliberate indifference, knowingly disregard. That's where liability attaches. Now, some of the claims, negligent hiring, negligent retention, negligent assignment, failure to supervise, negligent training, relative to the police departments. And when you say police department, it's really the city. There isn't an entity called, a legal entity called the Independence Police Department. It is the city of Independence. Do you understand? Now, even in those situations, you got to have a little bit more. Now, what are we usually dealing with? What we're usually dealing with is a hell beating. In other words, most of these cases arise when a police officer shoots somebody they shouldn't shoot or beats the hell out of somebody while they're handcuffed. You see, they're handcuffed. Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizures. So if they do an unreasonable search and seizure, you can bring a claim. Now, this is the big one. 14th Amendment. That's, by the way, we call that substantive due process and procedural due process. Deprivation of life, liberty, and property without due process. That applies to the shot in the back, too. False arrest. If you know they're arresting the wrong party, they can be liable. Now, this is a pet peeve of mine. This is I believe in police officers' immunity. There's a petition flying around, opposing that. But this is where I do believe there needs to be some reform. You file a lawsuit in state court. They usually remove it to federal court. Most of these claims go through the federal court process. As soon as you file the complaint or the lawsuit, that police officer is going to file through his lawyer a motion to dismiss it based upon qualified immunity. No matter what the federal judge does, they have a right to appeal that ruling to the Court of Appeals. So if it's dismissed at the motion to dismiss level, the plaintiff's going to appeal to the Sixth Circuit. If it's not dismissed, the cop's going to appeal it. It's going to go up no matter what. If you win on appeal and it comes back to the federal district court level, then you conduct discovery, take depositions and all that. Check out civil procedure video for more details of that. Then they're going to file what's called a motion for summary judgment, which means under the law, under the facts, there's no genuine issue as to material fact, and the police officer's entitled to a judgment, a matter of law. That's the legal mumbo jumbo. Guess what? If that summary judgment goes against the cop, they can appeal that. If it goes against you, you can appeal that. Sum total of what I just outlined, to make it clear, because that wasn't the clearest, is this. A police department, a city, a county gets to appeal 3 times up the ladder of the appellate courts. After the motion to dismiss, after the motion for summary judgment, and after a verdict. What does this mean? This will blow you away, folks. What does this mean? That means that any police case that goes all the way through the system will take probably 6 to 7 years to go to trial and 10 years for completion. What I just outlined is fact. What I think the reform needs to be is they don't get those appeals until the case is over. Now, I'm going to save the punchline for that for last. All right, so the basis for a lawsuit could be constitutional, state statutes, assault and battery. You got a state claim for assault and battery if a cop unlawful, deprivation of life and liberty, and then, of course, due process. Police department. You name the city, not the police department. You name the individual police officers. You name the city. You name the county or the state. Now, damages. Here's what your damages are. Lost income, past future income, past future medical bills, past future pain and suffering, emotional distress, all of that, all right? Now, I'm throwing in jailers here because jailers are deputies, they're law enforcement, but there's a unique situation with jailers that comes up all the time, and that's this: the withholding of medication and medical treatment. And you can't make this up, folks. They're immune from negligence. You've got to prove that they didn't do it on purpose. And I had what I thought the giganticest case against Campbell County Jail. What they were doing to their inmates relative to their treatment and medicine and everything else. And Judge Bertelsmann tossed it, and I lost it in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. And to this day, I'm like, I cannot believe this. It's nuts. Now, I'm going to go back to that 10-year process, 6-year process. I had a case once, famous case, Connie Black, Susan Stimler. You can Google it. Took me 10 years against the Florence Police Department and Boone County Sheriff's Department, where they, a man named Steve Kreitis, was chasing Susan Stimler, driving her car. Connie Black was with her. Connie Black was Steve Kreitis's girlfriend. They were out till 2 o'clock in the morning in Florence. Susan leaves with Connie Black at Connie Black's request. Steve Kreitis chases them through the streets and neighborhoods of Florence So they come upon City of Florence police officers, Boone County Sheriff's officers. They arrest Susan Stemler for drunk driving. Steve Critus, who they recognize smelled of alcohol, never even asked him to get out of the truck. Steve Critus tells him Susan Stemler's a lesbian trying to steal his girlfriend. They practically carry the drunk Connie Black out of the car, put her in Steve Critus's truck, saving her from the lesbian. Minutes later, Steve Critus is out on the interstate, loses control of his vehicle, turns it up on the side, and Connie Black's head and arm is severed by a guardrail. He's so drunk he don't even know it. With a busted tire, he goes all the way up to 275 near Turkey Foot. Truck stops running. He gets out of the vehicle to check on Connie. He checks, no head, no arm. Lakeside Park police show up, say, what the hell do we have here? They go back to the scene, find the arm, find the head, arrest Steve Critus. I had to try Susan Stemler's deal. It is a record in Boone County. 3-day jury trial. First time out. Hung jury. Had 2 mothers against drunk drivers, voted for our side. Tried it again, won. So I sued on behalf of Connie Black's estate, Susan Stemler, battled those bastards for 10 years before settling for a lot of money. It was unbelievable. Now here is something else. Louisville, that police shooting down there, Breonna Taylor. You see how quick the city of Louisville settled that case? The shootings that go on in Chicago, the shootings that go in New York, LA, these big cities, Ben Crum runs in, boom, boom, is that. It is outrageous what these liberal cities do. Now, by the way, they represent the taxpayer, right? Some of these cases can be defended. And it takes 10 years. 10 years. And they just write those checks. You don't get checks written that quick around here. By the way, city of Cincinnati, 10 years ago, no. Now, old Gerhard Stein stepped in, started, and anytime he brought one of these cases, write the check. Why? Democratic city, liberal city. And they had this, because of all their past police issues, they had this agreement with the feds. They were under restrictions of what they could do, the collaborative agreement. But I'm telling you, folks, they hang the police out to dry in these liberal cities. By the way, even when a police officer does something wrong, let's assume he does something wrong. Well, the issue is, what's the value of that case? You know, if a criminal with no high school education, never held a job, and all he is a gangbanger, gets shot and killed, under the law, that case ain't worth squat. He ain't got any lost income. And they write big checks. So it's not just if there's fault, it's also the issue of value. They paid, and I forget the guy's name, with a police officer. The guy was a pot dealer, and he pulled away, and the cop. Yeah, Tenzing. And Tenzing shot the guy. Tenzing shouldn't have shot the guy, admittedly. The guy was a pot dealer. That family got like 900,000. I mean, I forget how many millions they got. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell? That case was worth a couple $100,000 at most. At most. Cops get hung out to dry by liberal cities, folks. So that's an overview of what we're dealing with. The biggest thing I want you to take away from this is negligence isn't enough. There's got to be something really bad that they did with intent or deliberate indifference for police liability. This is the Bulldog. Every dog has their day. You have a great one.